Hi there, it's Matthew McKenzie, care activist, running another care awareness lecture. Now, as you might have known through my previous video, or the one before it anyway, regarding examples of poor care awareness, I wanted to do something where carers get a chance to suppose defend their carers' rights. And this video is partly, not the complete whole picture, but partly a way where carers can begin to use resources in order to defend their carers' rights. And it's very important carers are aware on how to do this. As usual, my background really is a focus on those who care, someone with mental ill health or care for someone with cancer. Most of my videos, if you've been to my YouTube channel or check out my blog site, will look into the situations mental health carers face. But, and this is a big but, um, most stuff really can be applied to all unpaid carers. So it's not just mental health carers. But anyway, let's get on with this lecture of care awareness. What can you do if mental health professionals push back? And when I'm talking about pushing back, and we'll show some examples, I'm talking about that they begin to ignore unpaid carers when it comes to care planning meetings, or if a carer raises something as a concern. So let's sort of give examples, because before we look into how carers can defend their own rights, their own carers' rights, and it's not something that you can do straight away without no learning at all. You'll have to learn a few things. And this sort of showing you the basics. So when I'm talking about mental health professionals pushing back, what do I mean by that? So let's have a look. Basically, here are some examples, and we're going to be very brief here because I've covered some of these things in other lectures. I probably will cover them again. Things that might come up here that I've not covered properly. One of the basic ones is dismissing carers' observations as bias or over involvement. Something I've heard, a few times when a carer rings up or goes to see a professional about a concern they have, and then after a while, you'll start hearing rumblings that you're too involved, or we can't really take on that concern. We don't think it's related to your inquiry, and this is obviously in regards to the carer concerned about the person that they're caring for. So, it could be a family member who's going through a mental health crisis. So this is an example, really, of when professionals start refusing to listen, or they can use that example. We also got another one, and I think this is again poor training, poor care awareness, or training on poor care awareness, is assuming professionals know best. So they often may talk down, use jargon to sort of push carers back, refusing to listen. We know best. We're trained in this field. We're labeled professionals, and you're not. So you can't really be telling us what to do. And thus, going on from there, they'll not really engage with the carer much. There's also a lack of transparency, a lack of communication, mentioned in my other video, and I'll try and see if I can put it in the description if you can't find it. When mental health teams are not being able to be contacted, or you feel the professional is actually hiding something, so it's not quite right with the care plan. I in the past have received a one-page care plan, and I knew something straight was wrong. Care plans are usually a lot more than half a page, one page. So a lack of transparency, what's missing and why. not soliciting carers' input in assessments and treatment plans. So you might even be identified as the carer. There might be concern regarding the person, the cares for situation when they are discharged, how they're going to engage back in the community. No future plans in care support. That's that type of thing. Prioritizing patient confidentiality is the point of exclusion, and the most extreme one is that they just don't talk to you, don't even listen, and this can put you in a situations that where you're isolated, and it can destroy almost relations with the person you're caring for, especially if they're a bit funny about you being involved, and this can sort of spiral to the whole mental professional team not wanting you to be involved. Don't get me wrong, there's some good reasons for it, but it can't be a sort of blanket ban for engaging with carers. Ignoring carers' insights on practical and day-to-day issues is another one. I won't go through them all here because I think with this lecture that I'm doing, it's going to be more how can you defend yourself against these things. Disregarding the carer's own emotional and physical well-being. I think this one's quite a big one, really. I suppose some people feel carers are just there to fill a certain task, and that is to look after or advocate for someone who has mental ill health. That doesn't mean, again, that the carer doesn't have their own emotional and physical well-being needs. But if it's disregarded, then it just goes to show, and it's another way for excluding and refusing to engage with carers. Downplaying safety concerns raised by a carer, a dangerous sort of a situation or task that a professional could try and do when they completely ignore concerns. Assuming carers are only there for practical support, not emotional insight. So it's going slightly with the situation of numbers, I suppose number 7, really, slightly, not fully. Just assuming carers are only there for practical support and not even listening to them, not even checking on the carer's well-being. And I think this one's a big one, failing to incorporate feedback or adjustment of treatment approaches based on care observations. So these are just some of the situations that can spark the professionals, health professionals, mental health professionals, not really engaging or listening to carers. There's a lot more to this than what I'm showing, but this just gives examples. Now, how can carers themselves, carers and families, close friends who are caring for someone with mental health, how can they protect themselves or fight back when these things happen? So let's have a closer look at this. The first thing I'd want you as a carer, if you're a carer listening, but I mean the professionals, they can watch as well and listen. First thing I say to all carers is document all interactions and concerns. Basically, you're keeping a record. And I've always sort of said to mental health carers, journal if you can, because it not only examines your own thoughts and feelings as a carer, but if you date things, record things, mark things off, it can be quite good as a way of keeping records. And why should you keep a record? Well, basically, if you're writing down your interactions with the mental health team, and it can be a little bit exhausting if you're having meetings with them a fair bit, then it will be useful in the future if it comes to making a formal complaint. And when I'm saying it can be a bit strenuous, you've got to include those dates, the times. And to be honest, you should really be doing this anyway, listing the name of staff you need to contact in case one of them gets a little bit funny. There's a fair bit of time that's not going to be the case, but you never know. And in an emergency, you should really be listing and knowing who's in that team regarding your patient's needs, or the person you're caring for. And details of conversation, not saying go into a meeting for a tape recorder. That's not a very smart thing to do. But as you can see from the picture I've put, is just, going in with a notepad. That's fine. Writing things down, you might forget, and then going through that later and putting it, to keep it a record. List specific concerns, as humans, I guess we're bound to forget certain things. But when you write down, what your concerns are in the first place, you're not likely to be thrown off track. So these concerns will be about the care and treatment of the person you're caring for. Use specific examples or incidents to illustrate why these are concerns. Why are they important? Why should these concerns be mentioned at specific meetings with the mental health professional? So basically, as a sort of summing it up, just document all interactions and concerns, keep them somewhere safe so they're not going to be lost anywhere. This is outside the usual meetings you may have with the mental health team, but if you want to raise concerns, it's always good to request a meeting, which is in your right to do. So arrange a dedicated meeting. Ask for a formal meeting with the mental health team, including, if possible, your loved one's care coordinator or social worker or even the psychiatrist, just to discuss your concerns and also make them record it. So that way they don't say, oh, you've never discussed this with me. Again, you might want to go over your notepad and write something down. And the meeting should be structured, should be a set of outcomes to that meeting. Certainly present your concerns without feeling rushed. But the problem with doing this, especially if you're new to the role in caring for someone with mental health, you might feel a bit intimidated in having to arrange a dedicated meeting. That's why it's always important to list down your concerns beforehand, even if you have to read it out in front of the consultant or the mental health team. But if you feel intimidated, this is a situation you bring support if needed. And it could be a friend, a close friend, obviously, not someone that doesn't want to be there or don't understand mental health or don't understand your caring role. Someone you can trust, family member, or even an advocate. Now, when I used to go to such meetings, I used to take the advocate or mental health support officer from my local care centre. If you have one, then and they have the time to come along, then you're very lucky. I would certainly bring them along because they're the ultimate in getting your views heard. It's their role, care support. But the thing is, advocates know what such meetings are about, and they know how to communicate with the mental health team, so they can clearly communicate your concerns, and also, if need be, take notes. If you find in those couple of things I mentioned a bit too basic, especially due to your caring role and how complex your loved one's needs are, or if the mental health team are pushing back too much, it's always good to seek help from a patient advocate or an advocacy service. So the idea is to contact an advocate. I did mention a few words of advocates previously. Many mental health trusts actually have independent advocates or advocates inside mental health trusts. I know Signet Healthcare pride themselves in having a carer's advocate, but not all trusts do have them, so they should at least refer to independent advocates or advocacy services available to help those who use the services or those who are caring for someone using the services. And advocates actually can attend a meeting with you. Don't be put off if a profession says, well, that person is not allowed to attend. What the point is, advocates help you express your concerns and ensure your voice is heard. You can also look for local and national services. Now, there's some here. The reason I put power there is they usually come along to my carer groups, my online carer groups. So they're quite keen to engage with carers and those using the services. You've also got Voiceability and local mental health charities. I'll give you a good few. Mind is one of them. Over in the UK, you've got Rethink Mental Illness. You've got Sane. So they might be I know Mind usually can provide advocacy services locally if they have them, if they have the funding for them. And again, if you manage to get hold of, one from those local services, then you're well on your way of getting fairly good support. As I mentioned earlier, these advocates can offer support if you're feeling dismissed or misunderstood in regards to voicing your concerns. Now, if things don't go as well as planned, it might be time to file a complaint. Obviously, you're going to be using your journal, and I hope you take that to account. That when you start a journal, you've got to list those names, dates of previous meetings. But a lot of it's going to be coming from that journal. So you could, if it's still the professional, push back, then it's time to write a formal complaint. Unfortunately, if concerns continue to go unaddressed, you're submitting a formal complaint to Mental Health Trust Complaints Department. This can actually be done through the Trust website. They should have a complaints department's email on their site. If we can go for, and I would say if you can do it as an email, because it creates what you call a paper trail, really. Things can be recorded back again. It might be a good idea to have even a receipt on the email you sent, so it's been read, to be honest. And then follow up on that complaints process. Each trust has a process for handling complaints. Don't just send it off and wait and let it be at that. You might want to sort of say to the complaints team, you want to hear from them in this certain time. You have maybe a week, 2 week to let me know the outcome. Especially if the response is getting a bit too long, record it. Why they're not getting back to you. Make sure to ask about this in the process when submitting complaints, and keep copies of all correspondence. So I've mentioned that already, to be honest. Keep copies of correspondence, because you not only you depend on that, but your loved ones' own health and well-being. This one I think is, which is why I included it. And I always talk about care centers, care support organizations, and the reason to reach out from this is more of a learning experience. So the idea is to connect with care support groups, because many care support groups, such as Carers UK, Carers Trust, I've mentioned Rethink Mental Illness, offer resources, guidance, and support. And in May, well, on our Carers UK definitely have care support groups and Rethink Mental Illness. The more likely we'll have groups we can learn from others, and these organizations can actually provide advice on dealing with unresponsive mental health teams and offer tools for navigating difficult situations. As mentioned, fairly often, and I've done this in other videos, the importance of peer support groups. It's not like you go there to just always spill your guts out and say, what your problem is. Other carers might have experienced similar challenges, and they will tell you what their strategies are when mental health teams do sort of push back or end up being really quiet. Peer support can offer valuable insights and emotional support when dealing with mental health teams. Obviously, we don't want to get to the situation about escalation. I have done a video on escalating complaints, but this is a situation some kids might find themselves in if the complaints department, pals, the mental health team are just not responding. They're just being really quiet, won't engage with you, won't listen to you, won't answer the phone, that type of thing. So you might start providing feedback. CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission, or even Health Watch, actually, they are tasked with getting feedback on services, health and social care services. So mental health services is one of them, to the point that they can go on and inspect certain areas of that service. But when you do contact these organizations, and the reason for that is if the mental health team repeatedly dismisses your concerns as a carer, or you believe that the care standards are just not being met because your loved one is unfortunately just not getting that support, they're not having their needs met, Health Watch, or the CQC, can actually investigate or record feedback. And if a number of carers keep saying the same thing, it flags it up. Raising concerns with these bodies can actually prompt action. Obviously, with the last two I'm mentioning here, the local authorities and MPs will probably be more of almost a last resort. It's not the full last resort. There are other ways. There are other things that are the last resort, but MPs usually can also act as brilliant advocates as well. But you've got to be aware MPs are having to cover a lot of the other constituencies' issues. So you've got to, use them sparingly, if you know what I mean. It can't be them shadowing you in your caring role. That's not going to really work. But they are interested and they can advocate for your rights. But this will be in serious cases where care is unsafe and neglectful. Do consider contacting, your local MP or the relevant local authorities who have oversight of the health services, and they can advocate on your behalf and ensure the issue is addressed. The last thing is down to you, which is, if you're watching this video, congratulations, well done, you're educating yourself. But it's so important. You can't leave things to chance if you're caring for someone with mental illness. So you got to understand your carer's rights. Now, luckily, I've done quite a few videos on this. I'd always mention again, please have a look at that carer's rights video. Have a look at my blogs. It's all on there. Carers have specific rights within mental health services, such as the right to be informed, consulted about the care of the person that they support. So it's so important to familiarize yourself with the Mental Health Act, even though it's been revamped, and carer's charter, if your mental health trust actually have one. And the point of carer's charter is to sort of give an idea of what you expect from the mental health trust. And in that charter, it just shows, what your rights are as a carer. This one's a bit tricky though, requesting the carer's assessment. But some mental health trusts actually have their own, which is very good. Some of them don't, but if they don't and you feel you need a carer's assessment, they should really refer you. So again, if not already done, request a carer's assessment through the local authority. This assessment might actually secure additional support for yourself and the person that you're caring for. So the last bit will be no matter what you do in regards to engaging or trying to engage with the mental health team, it's so important to stay calm but also persistent. Don't be shouting and arguing. I don't think that works really, and emotionally, it's really going to drain you. Maintain a respectful tone. People can. We're all humans. You can make mistakes, and this is the same for professionals. So if you just state, your situation, your concern, they're more likely to listen. But you've got to be done in a respectful tone. And why it's frustrating where concerns aren't acknowledged, just stay calm if you can. Professionals are more likely to sort of help you if you can explain in a calm manner um, about your query. But being calm doesn't mean that you're a pushover. As a carer, you should really be persistent if you feel the situation is urgent. If they're not responding, mention it again. Keep mentioning it in another way if it has to be. Phone calls, even turning up to the community mental health team's building and even ask the and then, you'd like to see face to face such and such, the manager even. Continue to advocate for the loved ones in your care, even if you feel like it's a struggle, and it will be a struggle. Mental health teams may respond slowly but persistent, often encourage accountability. So let's conclude all of this. If mental health professionals push back, it's always important to find out what is the reason, and does it impede or inflict on your carer's rights. You as a carer, don't have to sit there and take it. You have the right to know the reason, and maybe they're sort of pushing back because of a good reason, but you have the right to know. Learn about your carer's rights to request adequate support, not just learn, but use them. The steps I've mentioned above throughout this lecture can empower carers to take action when they feel ignored or dismissed, and to help ensure that their concerns are ultimately acknowledged by the actual mental health services. So again, don't leave things to chance. Unfortunately, these things may happen, it might not, but it's always good to know what to do. So on that note, I'd like to say thanks for taking the time to listen to this lecture. If you like the lecture, give it a like, and also subscribe to my channel. Every so often I will raise more awareness and lectures on the mental health carer's journey or cancer caregivers. And I'll see you again soon, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video.